Okay, so rank, pause discussion, and then the qualitative.
I don't need to pause, just go both, I think.
Got it. All right, hi everybody, can you hear us online?
Oh wow, 6:31, sorry.
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. Logan, feel free, if you're ready, you can go ahead.
Let me get myself together here, sorry guys. Who do we got online? We got Rachel, Tim's on, Marissa, Steven,
That's right.
and Mel. Okay, great. Well, I'll do a quick call to order. If we can just do a quick roll call and then we'll dive into the agenda. Let's just rattle off names. We'll start in the room and go clockwise, and then we'll go online. And if those of you tuning in online will just say your name and present. Hi, join us. So I'll start with roll call. Logan Dunning, present.
Mel Englund, present.
Joe Anderson, Council Liaison, present.
Jessica Hall. Cara Frangipani. Christine Brinker.
Michael Chisholm.
And Dana is joining us.
Dana Lieber.
And those online, if you'll just unmute just real quick and say who's here.
Rachel Palia, present.
Rissa Lease, present.
Stephen Strawbridge, present.
Tim Dodd.
I think that's everybody. I believe we have a quorum. It seems like our whole group. We're missing one or two.
Everyone showed up.
Great, thanks guys. Making it easy. I don't believe we have any guests. Good, all business tonight, it's fine. Let's move into approval of minutes. We're approving 2 months minutes tonight, both February and March. Any discussion, any thoughts on those months? If none, is there a motion to approve? So Mike moved the approval of February and March minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Dana seconds. Motion is to approve February and March. All of those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Nay. The minutes have been approved. Okay, good. And y'all guide me if I get off track or anything here, guys. New guy here. We have a good agenda tonight. There's some interesting things I'm excited to get into. I think we'll have a good discussion. I'll just do a quick outline and then we can come back up and start with some strategic planning. I did want to start with some quote unquote strategic planning, and I want to start that conversation by doing a quick review of the bylaws. There have been a couple questions come through. What purview do we have as a Sustainability Commission? What authority do we have? What role do we play in the community? What role do we play to council? And I think that's pretty clearly outlined in the bylaws. So I just wanted to have an open discussion. You should have a link from Mel if you don't have those already pulled up. So I just wanted to quickly run through those, make sure we're all on the same page and sort of have a level set. Because I think the bylaws will guide not only this meeting, but future meetings and what we want to accomplish and the tools that we have at our disposal to accomplish those goals. So that's first. Then we can move into the survey results. I hope you all had a minute to take the survey that Mel sent out. That survey and that part of the discussion tonight will be sort of an effort to just channel our energy and hone in our focus. There's some 9 subsections of the city sustainability plan. What I really want to avoid is stretching ourselves too thin over the next calendar year. That said, guys, that does not mean that we're going to neglect the areas that are not our top interest, right? It just gives us a starting point of what projects we want to take on? What areas do we want to focus on? It'll help educate. Who can we ask to come speak to us at future meetings and educate us? That's sort of the idea behind that survey. And then third, that discussion of areas of interest will funnel us into a discussion of projects that we can look into and sort of dig our teeth into as a commission. Mel will kick us off when we get to that point. We can talk about some projects that the city's taking on. And I've also heard of a number of projects within our community from you guys. So I'd like to have that be an open discussion, and any projects from neighborhood groups or that you're involved in, bring them up. Let's talk about them. Let's see if that's of interest to our group, and then we can move into determining who we want to come talk to us at future meetings. So with that said, I will practice what I'm about to preach and be quiet, but I would ask that respectfully, we just keep our comments pertinent to the topic of discussion, keep our comments succinct, and let's try and run an efficient meeting here. I'm looking forward to it. I think this will be a fun agenda. Any other comments there before we dive into the bylaw review? Great. I was talking with Mel. Part of the duties is an annual report from the city, and I believe Tim's on the agenda. Tim, if we can move you up, if we want to start with that from you, and then we can sort of get into more of the substance of the actual bylaws.
Tim, I can take it
So
over.
Logan, it's fine. I appreciate the impromptu move up, but it actually works out great because I'm gonna have to jump off in a little bit. So I really appreciate you moving me up. Good evening, everyone. I'll be really quick. As Logan pointed out, one of the items that's included in the bylaws is an annual report on sustainability in the city. I think, the goal obviously is there is now a finalized sustainability section in the strategic plan, which is also our sustainability plan for the city. And so going forward, obviously it would make sense to do a report on that. Part of Mel's job is to track all of the projects, collect data towards the metrics. But given that the Sustainability Commission is a little over a year old, but we don't obviously have a lot of data towards projects because we're just getting started, Mel and I just wanted to check in with you to see basically how you wanted to handle the annual report this year. Were you more interested in a narrative report? Are there items you'd like to see covered? We'll take your direction from this evening, and then Mel and I will work on it, and we'll bring back a report for you to look at your next meeting.
So this is Rachel. My thought on that is since, the committee is so young, it might be a good opportunity to figure out what exactly everything is that we want to benchmark and how we plan to do that, and then kind of start there. So maybe year one be a narrative, but working towards the benchmarks we identify this year. That's just my thought.
This is Michael. So just for clarification, as we go forward, the city will keep us apprised of what they're working on or what they have on their radar. And the city will ask our opinion, or will that just be keeping us aware and in the loop? Again, back to our role. Courtesy's welcome. I think that's, I'd like to know what's going on, but I come back to, maybe it's a bylaws discussion, where do we fit in that? Is that interesting for us to be aware of? Or is that something the city says, what do you think about that? And we say, well, we think the following. So that, in my mind, there's always a little airspace between the words and the action. And the more clear I am, the happier I am.
I'm with you, Mike.
Yeah.
And Tim, correct me if I'm wrong on this. I'm pretty sure for the annual report piece, it would be in terms of the Sustainability Commission, you all letting us know what you want us to put in there in terms of the Sustainability Commission, kind of things accomplished, projects that you've done, et cetera, and we can put that in there, and then we present it to you all to approve that you agree with everything that's in there regarding the Sustainability Commission. Tim, is that correct?
That's correct, and I do think it will be a lot easier in future years because, Michael, to your point, you are an advisory group, but I think it's a little bit of both in the sense that we now have a plan, right? So the plan, which you all weighed in on, many of the things that you as a commission wanted in the plan are in the plan. So the commission plays an advisory role in terms of advising council on some ideas that could and should be included. Obviously, it's council's decision. And then obviously to weigh in on things as they're progressing. So it is an advisory structure, but that doesn't mean that you can't bring new ideas forward as well. So part of it is advising and reacting to things that are in the plan, and part of it is making recommendations on new ideas as well.
Good, thank you.
So essentially, it's a review of what we thought we are hoping to accomplish in the past year and how far we got on each of those items. Maybe why things went either better or worse than we had expected, or why one project didn't work, recommending if certain projects get taken off or reworded, right? So just kind of recalibrating the sustainability plan within the strategic plan.
Yeah, kind of calibrating whatever the Sustainability Commission did within the past year that they want to report on. So I'm pretty sure you all did the leaf and hazardous waste event, correct? Mm-hmm. So that could be something.
Sort of an audit of our activities from the past year.
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree with Rachel. I think a narrative for the first year is appropriate. Is that something we're doing in the near future, like prospective, or something we're going to do at this April 2023 that's retrospective?
Tim, did you need all the comments this meeting?
Well, it's really up to you. So I think when this originally had been adopted, the idea is that it would be every year. That could be, you can interpret that a lot of ways, right? So we could try, to recalibrate it so that the report at the end of the fiscal year. The plan itself, the anniversary of the plan just passed on April 5th. So I think when it was originally contemplated, the idea is that you would do it in the spring, tied to Earth Day, and tied to when many people celebrate sustainability and environmental causes and ideas. So it's really, it doesn't specifically say, I don't believe in the bylaws, a specific month or a day. But we decided to bring it to you now just because it's been a year, and I think that was the original contemplation, was that it would be done in the spring. But if you want to rethink that, that's up to you.
I think the spring is fine. I'd like to, it says provide council with an update on programs and initiatives included in the sustainability plan. We spent, 2 hours sort of going through a lot of that last month. And now I would envision this meeting sort of being, hey, let's come together and identify what we would like to accomplish, what we would like to prioritize in the coming year. If we need to put that in writing for the city, great, we can. Or can we put this on the agenda for a year from now and take a retrospective look about what we accomplished? Is either or, is there any preference from the group?
I mean, I think it would be really interesting to see both. Agree with you and Rachel in that, the Sustainability Commission is still very new and young, and there's a lot of ideas on the table for future years to come. And I think part of that would also be nice to know, not just like our ideas, but how far they go and where they end up, through council meetings, and how they progress after we recommend them. So I would like to know, that piece of it as well, just planning for the future. A report on how far things have actually gotten or go or plan to go. So.
I think that sort of touches on what we're getting at towards the middle of the agenda, this project list. Is that something that we can have our meeting this evening identify some areas of interest, some potential projects that we want to dive into. And then I can have a discussion with Mel post-meeting. Is that something we can put together, the narrative piece, and then send it out for approval? Or is that something we need to do tonight? I guess I need clarification there.
Yeah, so Logan, the idea was never that we would, so we, staff obviously needs a little time too to write it. So I think the idea was we would get direction from you tonight if it's something you want to do. Then tonight to get a few ideas from, then we would generate a draft for you to review.
Got it.
And, if you wanted to have a meeting, meet on it and vote, that's probably the best way to do it next time. If you want to hold it, a few more months under your belt and then do the report in the summer, that's totally fine. We just really wanted to remind you that it is in the bylaws, and it was, again, contemplated to do it around now. So it's really totally up to you, but staff did plan to take your ideas and then present something back to you for you to review and edit and eventually consider.
Great. You're kind of going in and out, Tim, but I got the gist of what you're saying. I think the short answer is yes. We do want to do that. We do want to, on an annual basis, provide an update on what we're doing, sort of some project metrics. So if after tonight we can have that drafted and sent out, we can approve that. The short answer is yes. Is the feeling I'm getting from the group. Is that
Yeah,
right?
then I think if you all want it, then I can draft it up and I can work with Tim because he's been pretty involved in the commission in the
Great.
past year. We can draft it up and then you all can approve or disapprove of it next meeting.
Okay.
For me, it makes sense in the future to do our annual report sometime after we have a year's worth of work. So maybe in conjunction with reviewing the sustainability plan and the strategic plan, maybe time those similarly rather than randomly around Earth Day. Maybe that's on a calendar year basis and look at how we did against our goals. And if we do that now, it would be shorter because it's a relatively new committee, but you could put the leaf collection. I think it's also really notable that we formed the Sustainability Commission and launched it and reviewed and significantly improved the sustainability plan and got our feet under us.
Sounds like we have some content already.
Yeah.
Yeah, I concur.
I agree with everything, except I think it might make more sense to do it on the fiscal calendar year.
Which is?
When, is that July?
No, it's
So,
Tim?
oh, sorry, Joe.
go ahead.
Yeah, so it's actually tied to the calendar year. So, like our strategic plan report for the year, we basically, usually at the end of January is when that's issued. So about a month or so after the fiscal year ends.
I think that timing works. We spent March going through and essentially improving and approving changes to the city's sustainability plan. So if we did it in March, a year from now, as a review, I think we can continue to do it early spring.
I have a question. Does the city council update its strategic plan yearly? I know they review it quarterly. And then I know it's 2022 to 2025, but do you update it in the interim too?
Yeah, we'll update it. Tim could speak more to this because he's kind of kind of the steward of the strategic plan, you might say. But we have the big update at our strategic retreat in January every year. But then as things get, finished, then we'll have regular updates, or if there's something we need to add on, we'll add those on even in those quarterly updates. Is that fair, Tim?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Joe. So at a staff level, Sean and I, City Manager Lewis and I meet with directors on a monthly basis and review progress updates. On a quarterly basis, we do a dashboard, which is really right next to PowerPoint, that we bring to council, and we often bring recommendations on a quarterly basis of things that, as Joe mentioned, have changed, or we have recommendations on why we think something needs to change, or recommendations on shifting things in the plan, and then council every quarter votes to modify it or accept the changes. So they're usually not substantial, but usually what I've found in doing strategic planning in the past is that the first few times you bring it to a group, there's a lot more changes because you're just starting. And then once you get past a year or two, there's less and less usually because you get more engaged in the process.
Okay, so wouldn't it make sense then to do our annual report in advance of their council retreat in case we want to bring forward any new initiatives then? So maybe December instead of March? Makes sense.
Works for me.
So, so I guess I would, if it's okay, the only thing I would say about that is we typically last year we finished, so we closed out 2020 in January of 2021, and that's when we brought it forward to the city council at their retreat. The only challenge with closing it in December is you're closing it before the year ends. Theoretically, things like that, they might peak, before the end of the year.
That seems like a fair risk. We might not accomplish too much in the last 2 weeks of December.
Mike?
Just my thought. I think it's more important that we're listening to the city and the city is listening to us. So if we have a dynamic where we're communicating on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, budgets, timeframes to me aren't as relevant as do we have a healthy dialogue? Are we listening to each other? Are we influencing each other? So I'll go with whatever the decision is on the dates. I'm just saying it's the dynamic or the relationship we have with city council. If we're listening to each other, I don't think the calendar should get in our way.
Does December work for this group? Can we make that happen? Yeah. Okay.
Can I
Noted.
just ask one question or more of a curiosity? Are any of the metrics you guys are planning on measuring, are any of them going to measure like public perception towards sustainability and kind of how we're doing?
Are you asking me as part of the sustainability plan?
Like if you're going to put together an annual report, kind of updating, progress. I'm wondering if that's going to be one, or if that's been on the radar at all.
So at least in terms of the plan, we would just follow whatever metrics are in there, and public perception of sustainability is, from at least what I know, is not part of it. But I know city employee engagement and sustainability activities is. I think that's the closest metric.
Okay.
I like Rachel's idea though, and I had seen in the past strategic plan that we survey residents about their feelings on Inglewood, including how safe they feel, their opinions about the economy, and that inform the strategic plan. So maybe we need a question on sustainability added into that questionnaire.
Perhaps we can bring that up. I like the idea too. Maybe we can bring that up whenever we go over, maybe put it under a project list of something to add or recommend. Yeah, thank you, Rachel, for raising that. Tim, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, so just really quickly on that, yes. So to your points, we do, it's a citizen satisfaction survey. We do it every other year. We'll be launching it again this coming fall. As Christine pointed out, that has heavily influenced our strategic plan. There are many perception metrics or outcome metrics from that in the plan. We do it contracted through an organization that, unfortunately, we typically have a limited ability to change the questions because it's a national benchmark. However, they have been adding more environmental related questions over the years. So I can definitely make a note that when we start that process, and it's really handled by our communications team, that we see if we're able to include more sustainability related questions in that. But that's where we get that information from. So it's not done by the city, it's done by a contracted third party.
I think that'd be great information to have. Okay, short answer is yes. And we decided December, so we'll do a review. And so leading up to that December meeting, we'll all work with Mel and Tim to prepare that and ultimately approve. Anything else, Tim?
No, that's it. And I've talked a lot, and I'm trying to pull back from these meetings and ensure that you're all able to enjoy and speak at them. So I really appreciate the opportunity, and yeah, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim. Good to hear from you. So in lieu of time, I'd like to sort of dive into the top of the meat of the agenda, if you will, which is just a bylaw review. Review of the bylaws, excuse me. And with that, I just, like I said earlier, sort of a level set. Let's make sure we're all on the same page. Let's go through and define, why we're here, the parameters that are set on us as a commission. What kind of a voice do we have? So if you'll just have the bylaws in front of you, I highlighted a few things. I'll just kick it off, and it's an open discussion for a few minutes here, guys. My identification, 30,000 foot, is we're an advisory board to council. We make recommendations. We encourage sustainable actions throughout the city. It says here we advise and recommend. So that tells me we have a voice, right? And I sort of look to Mel and Councilman Anderson and Tim. To me, it seems like our voice, we are sort of at the discretion of the city of how powerful our voice is. I would lean on you guys, to empower us, to let people know we exist. We are new. And I envision, I would like our vote of approval or disapproval to carry a little bit of weight when it comes to certain projects that are brought in front of the city. And maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but that was a theme I took out of the duties that we have as a commission, is we certainly do have a voice. And I just wanted to voice that, a project is brought before council or before parks or whoever. And I would love, a year from now, 6 months from now, whenever, for the response to be, great. Have you run it by the Sustainability Commission? What are their thoughts? Did you run it through their approval process? What do they think? That's just what I would ask is we are new. Help us help the city if we can be kind of happy on that same page. I'll leave it at that. I know there were some questions about the powers, which we can get to here in a few minutes. There is a section that I'd like to hit on about donations and appropriations of money and grant. There's some grant language in there. But before we get down to the powers, were there any thoughts, any just general takeaways, guys? We don't have to make any changes tonight. I just wanted to address the bylaws, make sure we're all on the same page. And I will note that this is for discussion only this evening. It's my understanding that we need to have the discussion and then have a formal vote in May if we want to do any changes to the bylaws. That said, I'll open it up for discussion. If anyone wants to voice any thoughts or ideas.
I'll stop.
You'll stop.
No, man, I'll talk. I agree with what you said. I like that part of the bylaws because to me it's clear. We're advisory. The city would like our 2 cents. And it's our responsibility to be as knowledgeable as we can be so that we don't just come up with comments.
Sure.
The only thing that is a question mark for me in the bylaws is the discussion of fundraising and dollars. And that, there's no harm in it being in the bylaws, but I get concerned that expectations could be raised that we have a budget or that we can write a grant or that we're going to write. It just seems to me the more focused we are, the more effective we'll be. So if somebody on this commission wants to write a grant, I'll help them. I'm supportive of that. But back to our role, if we have 1 hour to spend on sustainability in Englewood, where do we spend it? So I could be all wet on this. Just the authority, the money, the fundraising, the budgets, it makes me nervous because we went through this before and it was a ball of confusion and it was very frustrating. And I just don't want to get into that mess again of, I'd rather say, I can't do anything about it, or I'd rather say we can come up with a position and make a recommendation to the city. So it's clarity. There's no damage the way the bylaws are written today, but that's just my takeaway from reading them. bylaws.
And Tim, sorry, I'm gonna pull you in just for this one, just for clarity. What I believe Will Charles told me was with the fundraising part was for the kind of the hazard and the leaf events of collecting those co-pays when people come to help offset the costs of hiring the hazard and event. But that's all that I know of. I'm not sure of any other.
I wrote or assisted in writing a request to keep America beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where some of the confusion came in. We got awarded the money. We thought it was our money. It was the city's money. And it was frustrating because Deanna was asking for help. Some of us were saying, sure, we'll give you some money. No, we don't have any money. I just don't want to go through that again. And so, and if somebody said, hey, let's write a grant, I'll be glad to get on board and help write a grant. But I just don't want expectations to be raised out there so our credibility gets damaged. You know, it's like they're all talk, no action, you know, or they got halfway through and then they threw the towel in. I just don't want that to happen. I want us to be clear and I want our neighbors to be clear on where we begin and where we end, and this is how we can help you. So that's.
Yeah, money does complicate things. And it does say to solicit and accept donations and appropriations of money, services, products, property, et cetera. So I guess the clarifying question is, if we were to do as the powers say solicit grant money or accept donations from a nonprofit in Inglewood or something for a project, does this commission retain that money, or does that go to a line item within the city's budget where we need to tell the city ahead of time, pre-January 1, like, hey, this is what we intend to use the money for? Because that, I think, was the case with Keep Inglewood Beautiful in that grant money. Couldn't you correct me if I'm wrong, Councilman?
No, I think that I would, all of the boards and commissions are functionally an extension of city council. So they're not acting as independent entities that have their own bank account,
right,
collect money that then they can directly use. So anything, any grants that the board and commission pursued and received would still have to be, appropriated by city council, approved by city council. So, and if I could just speak a little more to some of Mike's frustrations, which I think are valid. When I joined council, and as liaisons, as we were picking our, which boards we were going to be liaison for, I was like, keep Inglewood beautiful. That sounds great. I want a beautiful city. I do, I've been leading the neighborhood rehab project for years. That makes houses more beautiful. So surely that fits in somewhere. And when I got on KAB, I found it frustrating because it was kind of an outdated, bit of an outdated model. It didn't really slot into anywhere in the strategic plan in any way. And so I think a lot of the frustration you felt on KB was KB specific, and we're no longer KB.
Okay.
This is now the Sustainability Commission. We have a sustainability strategic plan in the city. We have 7 or 8 sections in our strategic plan, and sustainability is one of them. So and to Logan's point that when he wants to when something comes up that's sustainability related, the city to say, hey, let's run this through the Sustainability Commission's approval process. That's exactly what we did when Case brought a whole bunch of suggestions for a strategic plan. We postponed approving the strategic plan specifically so that we could bring that to the Sustainability Commission last month to get approval and have you guys look it over and modify it. And then we brought it back to council. Of course, at council, we modified it some more. But nonetheless, the stuff in there came from this, came from decisions of this commission. And so I think, Mike, time will prove this out, but I think your past experience on KB will prove to be KB specific, and the Sustainability Commission will have a stronger voice just because of how it fits into the city as a whole.
So in simple terms, thank you, that explains a lot. I like that. If some of us said, hey, let's write a grant for a composting project, we write the grant, and then we work with other people in the community, and they say, oh, this is great, you're getting something done here. We would have to say to those people, in all honesty, we're going to try to get this money, we like it, we have to give the money to the city. We're an extension of the city, so we will give the money to the city. But at some point, the city has to decide to spend that money on the composting project. I mean, and that's okay. I just want to be clear. If I'm talking to my neighbors, I don't have the authority to write a grant and give you a check. I have the authority to write a grant on behalf of Englewood and citizens, and I have the commission to work with, to get that money into the coffers of the city. But then there's another step, which is we probably have to explain to the city why we wrote the grant and what we hope happens with it.
Well, yes. Go ahead.
Because I was thinking the same question. How does it get executed if we apply for a grant? So, for example, to take my composting example, if we got a grant to fund people setting up backyard composting, just for an example, and to get that grant, we would have to say how the money's going to be used. But and so that money, when it comes in, goes into the city's bank account. But wouldn't it still get allocated or given to people in community grants the way we've applied for it? Like, wouldn't we still have discretion about how it gets distributed?
Yeah, I don't want to say too much here because I'm probably outside of my expertise. And so we'll probably have to pull in somebody from finance to talk about how that process would work. But I'll tell you what I do know. The Cultural Arts Commission, for example, gets money directly allocated to them, and they do apply for grants. But a lot of that is kind of pre-approved by the city. So we know that this is a part of their annual process. So we already know they're going to do that. And when they have had some things that they've done that weren't kind of in the pre-approved status, then they've come back to city council for approval before it's distributed back. I think, again, I'm kind of on the edge of my knowledge here, but yes, I mean, and if for example, if the Sustainability Commission applied for a composting grant and that came before council, then I have a hard time imagining council saying, you know what, we're going to take that grant, we're going to allocate it for something else, for dog parks or something like that.
It just seems we need to be in touch with city council before we apply and make sure we're all on the same page.
And that's part of why I'm here, is because if you guys say we're going to apply for this grant, then I'm going to go to council and council members' choice at the next meeting and say, hey, this is what the Sustainability Commission wants to do. What do we have to do to make sure that this is approved and we make the process as smooth for them as possible to get this going back to them? So open lines of communication, often and frequent. Okay. I think that answers that question for me. You as well.
No, that's great.
That was one of the big areas I had physically circled. Any other thoughts on the bylaws? Nana?
So we do want to have the voice, like you said, to make recommendations. But my question is, how is there some accountability? If we recommend to a department that they, specific things, is there follow-up on whether there was progress, whether there was action along our recommendations?
I feel like that's where my sustainability updates each month could come in. If I have any updates on the request, I would obviously give them so you all have that follow-up.
I think when we're advising on anything, we do just that. We weigh in, we give our opinion. This is our area of expertise as a commission.
What is
And
it?
at the end of the, go ahead, Carol.
Wasn't it like every recommendation or suggestion still passes through city council, right? So if we were to recommend a project or resources from the city to help with something or what have you, I mean, that goes through city council for a vote, right?
Yeah, so this is an advisory commission, so that is your direct line is to city council. It's not to other departments or, yeah. But that being said, staff is communicating with each other. Mel is in touch with,
all departments.
All departments. So it's not that those lines of communication are non-existent. It's just that the official pathway for the commission directly is to make you guys can, pass a resolution to recommend something to council. If this commission passes a resolution to recommend something to council, that is definitely going to come before council. It's not going to, it's not going to fall off the edge of the earth. That is the direct path. So that, I think like, if you're thinking in terms of getting big things done, that would be the number one pathway, is to say, this thing is in the strategic plan, we want to accomplish it, or this thing's not in the strategic plan, we want to add it to the strategic plan, let's make a resolution to have city council look at it. But this is in the strategic plan, we want to move it along, let's make let's have a resolution to recommend it to city council, and then it's going to come before council. And, obviously city council has the authority to say yes or no to anything. We have things coming from many different boards, but it really is the best pathway for citizens to get stuff before council. And generally, those are the most likely things to get moved forward, are things that come before council from boards and commissions.
So I have a question. Is there like an org chart or a diagram out there? Because I think pictures help
Preach.
a lot. And I don't know, I know bylaws in the traditional sense is like more of a narrative, but that doesn't mean we can't stray from the norm. And if there's an org chart or a diagram out there for like how exactly we fit in and how the communication lines work, I think that would be super helpful.
I could send that in a follow-up to everyone, the organization chart.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
And you have the one that includes city council and boards and commissions as well, not just the entire.
Do you mind forwarding that to me and then I can disperse it?
Yeah, I'll see if I can, I'll find that.
So I'm trying to understand, like, I imagine that we might, to give an example, like if we want to know how the new code is addressing sustainability. Are you saying, Joe, we'd have city council update, we'd speak to city council, or could we directly speak to the committee working on the unified development code?
I think for that, and sorry to butt in, I think for that would be a great time to bring in the speakers, because usually every meeting you all can pick who you want to come in. And I did notice in the survey, a lot of people are interested in codes. So as a group, if you wanted, we can bring those people in and you all can have a discussion with them one-on-one from the city.
But to take it one step further, I think that's the first step. The follow-up would be, to make a list of recommendations that you're interested in adding to the code, and form that as a resolution and send it to city council as an official recommendation.
Okay.
And also for, that would also be distributed, of course, to the steering committee and staff as well. But, to say when we go to approve those codes, these are things that are going to be looked at.
Great.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
I'm visually seeing the org chart as council and arrows down to our boards and commissions. But the way we have horizontal lines between boards and commissions is perhaps the speakers, and that's how we can interact
Or
boards.
city departments.
Right, we can bring in speakers and address them and ask questions and have them educate us on what they're doing and their initiatives and their priorities. That's how I envision it, so I'm eager to see the actual org chart.
Well, and I was a former code enforcement committee member. And I think, to your point, because there's a council member associated with each committee and commission, and it can be, I think if you were to invite the entire committee in to have a discussion, that could get a little out of control. But to narrow it down to the council member who's in charge of that code enforcement committee, who can then take the message back to the committee and sort of task them with, here was a suggestion from another committee having to do with code, make the recommendation, you guys come up with whatever the recommendation is, type of thing.
So lean on city staff and other boards and commissions.
I could see us also wanting to talk to different departments, like community development or
Absolutely,
parks.
and I intend to bring that up tonight, and that is the vision, I think, Dana. I think you're hitting it on the head.
Yeah, I do know with the code enforcement committee, big topic was like plants and trees and shrub code, and a big part of that is the ash borer problem that's sort of spreading across the Front Range here. And I know there were many ideas talked about within that committee for projects to sort of help the community fight the ash borer problem. But again, that's a code enforcement committee, and so we didn't get very far as projects or project recommendations to city council, and I think that actually would fit really well with this commission. So
I think it's urgent.
yeah.
That's top of our.
Noted.
And we have programs already in play that we put in place last year.
Yeah, it's not about the ash borer, but I think there's a lot with the landscape code that's important to address.
Good. We have more to talk about then, it sounds like.
Okay.
Any other thoughts on the bylaws? It was brought up at past meetings, you know, do we serve 2 terms? Is it 2 terms for 2 years? Is that right?
I think yes, because Bob served
Mhm.
2.
And Bob's outgoing was sort of a catalyst to the conversation of, can we make changes to term limits? Can we make changes do we have that sort of autonomy?
If they are in the bylaws and not in city code, then yes. If they are in both, then halfway.
And I think this was a question.
I think it is in code though.
Yeah, I think because that was a question with Bob too, and I think it is in code that with the term limit, but I can touch base with Tim and do a follow-up on that one.
It does say consistent with City Ordinance 50. So it sounds like it is a 1, 2. Just curious, that's clarifying for me. I might bump up one of our subpoints since we're already sort of in the topic of bylaws when it comes to subcommittees. I don't mean to jump the gun there, but it seems pertinent to the conversation now. I asked Mel about the topic of subcommittees and whether or not that's an area of interest. Do we have the authority to create subcommittees? And Mel put the inquiry in and came back, and I think the answer was yes. We can, but we need to build that in.
Yeah, so the city attorney said that we can do it if the commission votes that they want to allow it, and then that would be put into the bylaws.
Okay. We haven't gotten to the projects. We don't really have too much of an idea of what we want to accomplish over the next month, 6 months, 12 months. So I don't know what role subcommittees would play or could play, but if there is interest, is it ideal to make that change now? Or should we address it when it's like, we're dealing with maybe 2 or 3 projects or certain areas of interest, let's create a subcommittee for it, or a subcommittee to write a grant or something.
I think the subcommittees is a really great idea, and I think it's really important, and I think it should be in our bylaws, but I don't know that it has to be so specific because we don't know specifically what we want a subcommittee for. So, I mean, I'm in favor of adding something to the bylaws, but keeping it general that, like if the commission votes to approve, to start a subcommittee, then we have the, power to do so, in a meeting with a vote, or whatever it may be. Because if you think like projects coming forward, whatever they may be, we want to create a subcommittee for, 2 people to sort of head a task up and kind of update the group at the monthly meetings or, for multiple different projects. I know we had a subcommittee for communications with code enforcement, which was really great. There's a whole communications group with the city who does really awesome work, and there's the quarterly magazine that goes out and we can get articles put in and sort of highlight our work to the citizens of Englewood. So I do think it's really important
I love
to,
that idea, and I appreciate the perspective,
I agree.
the experience,
Good
Kara. Great, so that sounds like, anybody online, please weigh in on subcommittees.
I think she's absolutely right. I like the idea of addressing it now, but giving us the flexibility in the future to, mold it to what we need it to be.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with everything Kara said. So
I concur. Can we, so let's put a pin in that. We seem to approve the idea this evening, but we'll need to have a formal vote at the May meeting. So that will be under action items at the top of the agenda, is to adopt subcommittee language. And if Tim or Mel, whomever, if you can draft what that might look like in our bylaws as a bullet, that would be helpful, and we can vote to approve next month.
It looks like there's already something on committees, so we would need to revise it.
Okay.
And it
Standing
says
committees.
that each standing committee, maybe we call it a subcommittee instead of a standing committee. It says it needs a chair and a vice chair and has to be limited to 4 people. But if it's 4 or less, I don't think you need a chair or vice chair.
Sure,
That seems a bit silly.
I had that highlighted and I wrote, does standing committee equal subcommittee, ? And I don't want to remove the language of standing committees in the case that we do need that at some point. Maybe I needed clarification or a comparison of what a standing committee is versus a subcommittee.
yeah, I was gonna ask that.
I can reach out to Tim and
Okay.
get follow-up on that one.
That'd be great.
Standing seems more permanent, right?
I think so.
Or you have to stand up the whole time. Yeah.
It's
I hope not.
mandatory.
We also have a jogging up the stairs committee.
You'll develop that today. That's all I have highlighted, guys. Are we happy with the clarification that we got and the clarifications that are going to be coming for some of the questions we asked this evening?
It looks like the bylaws say we can each serve for 2 years. A term is 2 years, but it must be in the code that says limited to 2 terms.
Okay.
So we'd have to change it in the code if you wanted more than 2 terms. And I saw other committees had a alternate. Could be useful since I know people move, people have babies or jobs that change, and so membership could fall off after a year or 2. So maybe having an alternate might be nice.
Yeah. Let's bring that up for discussion too.
We should probably also take a council vote, because it's probably also in the code, not the bylaws.
Someone have a thought?
Actually, maybe it is in the bylaws. It says it shall be composed of 9 members. So maybe we could put it there.
And an alternate?
And an alternate.
Okay, I've got it noted.
So, and would the alternate would take over the position if someone had to,
Step in.
Typically, the way the alternates work is that if, I think if someone is absent, there's not a quorum, the alternate would then vote on those occasions. But the alternates in our other boards and commissions are present at every meeting and can contribute to discussion. They just only vote if they're needed for quorum.
Okay, they don't stand in as a sort of vacancy. That's not the role of an alternate.
Okay.
But they're typically moved up when we approve new.
Oh, they have
when there is.
right of first
opening.
refusal, sort of.
Yeah,
Okay,
they're,
that's
yeah,
helpful.
yeah, if the board chair recommends them,
Yeah.
then we'll move them up in a regular board position before anybody else who's applied typically.
On this topic, I did see, maybe on social media or something, youth members of commissions. I don't know if that's something of interest or if that's a voice that we would appreciate having on this commission. If that's, I just popped in my head, I figured I'd bring it up. I thought that was interesting. If someone's looking for credits or a resume. Yes, Rachel, sorry.
I just, my initial thought on that is that's also a big responsibility and
Yes.
another thing to kind of manage on the plate. I like the idea, but that's just my initial thought.
It is great for a resume, though. For college.
On this subject, something that came up at a recent council meeting was we had a youth who came to council and suggested we start a youth commission that could speak to any number of different subjects, because we have a hard time getting youth people on our boards and commissions. We have a number of those slots, but we have a hard time filling those because I think kids don't want to sit in on a boring adult meeting or that's intimidating or something like that. So having a commission that's made up entirely of youth that can speak to any number of things is maybe a better direction. So we're going to consider that.
Yeah, I'd love to see that come to fruition.
So I have a question. I understand that if anyone on the commission is employed in any way or has any, gets hired for anything by the city, they have to resign. Is that, and now that we're talking about alternates, I'm curious, is that a permanent resignation, or could it be for the duration of that work contract?
I don't know the answer to that
I
question.
can look with Tim on that and get back to you.
Thank you. I thank you all.
The nitty gritty of everything, I'm like, I will refer to Tim.
We should seek legal counsel on some of
But
this.
I'd like to come back and.
Hopefully it'd be the latter. That'd be nice,
Makes sense.
especially if we had an alternate.
Anything else on the bylaws? We're an hour in. So if we're good on that, we have some items to discuss next month and vote on. So that's exciting. Thank you guys for entertaining that part of the agenda for me. I'd like to transition a little bit to the survey. Like I said at the top of the meeting, this survey was a means to really hone us in, identify areas of common interest, and then lead us into some priority project discussion. Like I said, please keep in mind that this is not a list that will ignore anything outside of the top three. We will cover the gamut of topics over the next calendar year. This is just a starting point. So I'm going to hand it to Mel. She's brought up some of the survey results. If you will walk us through, Mel, maybe the question that was asked, and then tell us what you found.
Yeah.
Make it bigger,
Yes.
way bigger.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There you go. All right, so this one was the question about ranking of your top three found in the goals. And so I put how many people voted right here. This is just my opinion. I find the overall votes maybe a little bit more clear. And so this group kind of, clearly has an interest in the natural environment goal, waste and recycling, and energy. And maybe with a lower priority kind of being this transportation, air quality, and economic resilience.
It's interesting.
Yeah. So I'm gonna do everything really high level just in the sake of time. And if anyone has any questions, please stop me. So then these two were the main questions asked. So what do you hope that the commission will accomplish in the next year, and what indicators of success would you use in evaluating the commission's efforts? And I thought these were really helpful. So someone said, identifying sustainability plans we want to see implemented, inviting city departments that fall under the sustainability.
Do you mind zooming in just a little bit?
Oh, yeah, of course. Is that better?
That's better.
Okay, perfect. So essentially inviting different city departments to the commission meetings, which I think that is everyone's intention in the year going forward. Becoming a sounding board for the council, neighborhood groups, and citizens, which definitely is under the purview of this group. And then this one, so providing strong recommendations on new energy codes. That could also be, again, a presentation coming in and resolutions passed by this group. EV planning, which I'm excited to do an update on that in a little bit. And then kind of improvements to existing programs. I think that fully falls in there. Someone else said sustainable and practical guidelines recommended to the city, contribute meaningfully to at least one project that falls in the sustainability goals, And then finally, someone put support city efforts in sustainability and make a path for what success looks like from the sustainability versus KEB, which I found that really, really great. And then increase engagement in sustainability events and volunteer engagement. And then for the indicators of success, so the group said, you know, the numbers of goals that we implement and specific metrics, being involved in or advising on various projects for the city, actively engaging with neighborhood groups on a regular basis. Energy codes were brought up again, advising on the E3 program, and helping to implement lead paint and paint removal. And then another for Go EV City resolution to be adopted. Someone else said an indicator would be just citizens really knowing that about sustainability efforts and, you know, the commission, and then having kind of good and practical improvements and additions to the plan. Someone said measurable accomplishments, and then finally we have setting goals on what we want to accomplish as a baseline.
That's great, Mel. Thanks for facilitating this survey
Yeah,
and getting
yeah.
that out. Would you mind, can this be sent out to us?
Yeah,
So we can all sort of get our eyes on it
absolutely.
after tonight?
I'll make note of it.
Because there's some great project ideas sitting in here. Low-hanging fruit.
Can I throw out a suggestion? Just kind of, I'm gonna digress for a second.
Yeah.
Would it be possible, and I don't know, I can follow up with you after this, but would it be possible, I mean, if you guys are using Microsoft Teams and a lot of people use it for work, would it be possible if we like create a team for us?
I don't see why not. I can just verify that with Tim, but I think that's a great idea.
Because then you can keep everything and, if you want to share documents with us, it's easier to just pop them in there. Just a thought.
No, that's a great thought.
I'm all about that.
My only question with that is, do we have a requirement for like making things publicly available?
Yeah, you might run into, if you're passing stuff back and forth outside of a public meeting, then that would be a violation of the Open Meetings Act.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Could we limit it to just
During,
a bulletin board or something? Like lock commenting, but if we can avoid those laws, just to post things like this so that it's in one place.
I don't think that would,
No.
I think the best way to do it is to email anything to Mel and have her distribute it.
But even if it's been in the meeting and made public?
I think if there's any question, we should err on the side of.
And I can ask the city attorneys to get back. I have a running list of questions.
It was just a thought. I was like, that's a quick way
Oh,
for
it's
us
a
to
good one.
collaborate instead of, yeah.
In our open meeting
I
law.
just remember there being issues on
At
the
the
open
forefront,
meeting,
yeah. Any thoughts? I know we haven't had but a few minutes to really get our eyes on some of these survey results. I think we had, am I counting six results? Does anything jump out? Any
I think we should extract from this there are a lot of different project ideas in here and figure out a way that we rank them amongst us and figure out our what we prioritize.
Okay. I agree. I wanted to do that tonight. I'm not sure if we have time. Perhaps that could be a big bulk of our May meeting. That said, if we, we're 25 minutes till 8. I could see that being a longer conversation, a project ranking conversation, and I wouldn't want that to be something that's rushed. I guess is my point.
Yeah, if you have this to look at later,
Mhm.
that would help us have a more focused.
What if I worked with Mel to sort of create a master list of potential projects that we can send out in advance of the next meeting and have that be a chunk of our May meeting? Just a thought, please.
A
Feedback.
suggestion, sorry, this is Rachel. I don't know if you guys have ever used something called a pairwise tool. but it's a way to prioritize things, and it kind of like forces you to do so. For like difficult conversations, I'm just making the suggestion. It's a really good tool to help like kind of rank things.
How do you spell it?
Yeah, I'm unfamiliar. Will you spell that, Rachel?
PAIRWISE. And Mel, I actually have a copy of some like it's an Excel like macro. I can send it to you if you're interested.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I can send that to Mel, Rachel.
Maybe-
That'd be super
That's
helpful.
cool.
How about if an email goes, we might have more ideas we want on that list
Totally.
before you make the final list, since that wasn't a specific question.
Now, if you're talking about projects, then we want to start with the strategic plan and do the, like, if you want something that's gonna make it through council, then you want to stick with the strategic plan. If you want to add something to the strategic plan, then that's another, conversation
Understood.
you want to have. But I would stick with those, because there are more projects in the projects list than the commission is going to accomplish this year. So prioritizing from the existing set that's already
Good.
in there is probably your best bet.
And I like that
Thanks,
idea, and maybe, Mel, you want to go through the list and say which you feel totally comfortable doing on your own versus which you really want help on? And if we have strong opinions on one that you think you can do on your own, we can still work with you on it.
Yeah, and so I made a potential project list that I can pull up, and all of them come from the sustainability plan of things that I think are pretty doable for the commission, but they're just ideas to throw out there.
I think that's a natural transition to our next agenda item. Is that where we're headed? No.
Totally up to you. I think it would be a pretty good segue.
I wanted to make sure we put a cap on the survey results and any discussion around that. I had the top three, just to put it into the record. Natural environment came in at number 1. I believe it was waste and recycling was number 2. And then energy came in at number 3. Is that accurate?
Yep, so it was natural environment, waste and recycling, and energy. Yep, and waste and recycling and energy tied.
Okay.
And there's none that got no votes.
Yep, every
is
goal
interesting.
area at least got 1 vote, which is good to know.
What was 4? What came in?
4 was natural environment.
Was that tied with water?
No, so natural environment was first with 4 votes, and then, that's the wrong one. And then waste and recycling had 3, energy had 3.
And what came in 4th place?
So the ones with 1, there were 4 of them. It was built infrastructure, economic resilience, air quality, and transportation. And then water protection and community resilience each got 2 votes.
Yeah, that was 4th, those 2, tied at 2.
And I was gonna compare that to city council priorities. I can pull it up here, because I'm curious.
It's an interesting point, Christine. Yeah. All of them were.
So city
selected
council's
as
top 2 priorities were water protection, number 1, and built environment and infrastructure, number 2.
Okay.
And then most of the rest of them got 2 votes each, so far.
I have a question, but I don't mean to go off topic, but is there like a designated budget that we have for projects for the year? Like I know, Joe, you mentioned like the arts and whichever, the other group that gets, a set allocation every year. Do we have something like that, or is this where we have to separately go and like request a grant for each project without really knowing how much we have to play with?
Good question.
It's
So
a
I know
great question.
sustainability in and of itself has a budget, but in terms of the Sustainability Commission, I'm not sure how much money is currently there, and so that's something I need to follow up with Tim, just about the financials and everything, and I can do that in a follow-up email.
That would be great.
And this goes back to, do we have discretion or not? I mean, the money that we collect at hazardous waste, it's a throughput. I mean, it goes to the city, that's great. We don't get to say we want to put a water fountain in the park. We just hand it over. And again, it's just clarity, my point of view of
And
It's okay with me. If we don't have a budget, just say so. I
it
can live with it. I just need.
it will inform what we decide is our project.
Exactly,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
what we have room to do and what we don't.
Great question, Kara, thank you.
Well, but I would think that, and Tim will provide more clarity on this, but if you're working on a project that's in the strategic plan and fits within the budget, the amount of money budgeted to sustainability, that's where, that would be where the money would come from.
Okay.
For.
In the
Or at
past,
least
Joe, we've
even
never
partial
seen that
of it.
number. I mean, so.
That's what we're looking for, is just
Yeah,
the number.
okay.
Yep, yep.
If there's a number,
Yep.
I'd like
I'd
to.
like
So
to-
I
I'd like to
can,
know.
I can
Yeah.
follow up with Tim how much sustainability as a whole has, and then,
Good.
commission.
What's already allocated to certain projects just through the city versus projects that we might want to work on throughout the year.
Good. Let's transition. It's 7:41. Let's have a few minutes. Let's talk some projects. Mel's going to kick us off with this, and then we can transition to a more open discussion. I'd like to hear from the group, from the commission, of what projects you're hearing about, what's on your radar, just so we have it in the record, and we can, like we just talked about, we can go in and work on prioritizing that once we get more information. So I'll hand it to Mel. if you
Yeah,
will.
so these are projects I thought were all pretty feasible. All of these help the sustainability metrics and projects and programs. So one is suggesting ways to increase water efficiency in our city's code. I met with someone from the Allen Water Treatment Plant. They're working right now on a water efficiency plan actually to come out for the city, and it's going to be out for public comment in a few months. I'm not exactly sure when, but I think that would be a great time to do kind of recommendations for them. Another one is tree plantings, or encouraging residents to plant trees, because one metric in ours is increasing tree canopy in the city. And then I'm a big geek for education and outreach. That is where my background really comes in. So really anything that deals with sustainability, whether that's waste diversion, air quality, water conservation, really you name it, what is listed within the sustainability plan. And I put some fun days in there. So there's Air Quality Awareness Week, which is May 2nd to May 6th. There's Learn to Compost Day, May 29th. I mean, there's a slew of dates we could go off of, but also it doesn't need a fun date to do, but they're there. And then also I had connecting with the community to find out what sustainability issues really matter to the community as a whole, and then bringing them to this council so that you can advise the city on kind of what's important to your neighbors, to other residents. And then my final one is outreach around the river cleanup event, which by no means you are required to go to. Would love to see you there though. But a metric in our plan is to increase participation over 2019. So if you want to get the word out or do anything around that, that would be really helpful too.
This is great, Mel. Thank you. Christine.
Yeah, can we talk about those? I love those. That's a great list. I love it.
Oh, thank you.
On the first one, I really like that idea about looking at increasing water efficiency in our city's codes. Do you think you could get us a draft of that plan before it goes out for public comment? Because we might have a lot of additions and could improve it.
I can definitely ask Stephanie.
Do a round before it goes out. And I had a comment on the tree planting one. I would love if we could work in conjunction with making a plan for the city to plant more trees on its own parks and public space. Kind of a two-prong effort, public
And I feel like it's predictable what I'm going to say. I would like there to be a recommended tree list for the tree planting.
Yeah.
That is low water trees and trees that support the highest number of critters.
That's a great idea.
Because if they're not native, I mean, it can be the difference between supporting 0 pollinators or insects and 300 species. So it's.
Just a thought, Mel. I love the bullet points and I love the snapshot. And I'm thinking the Englewood magazine, whose name escapes me, It's a good magazine, I like it, I read it. It'd be cool if there was a little corner or a spot in that magazine that said something like sustainability update, or what the heck's going on. It would not have to include every bullet, but for example, if there's a river cleanup, 2 weeks after that magazine comes out, you could say, oh, by the way, there's a river cleanup. If our list got refined and we started to hone in on 2 or 3 priorities, it's a way to tell the community what we're up to or what we're looking at, and it also is an invitation for them to say, tell me more. So if you were doing an educational or putting together an educational presentation on recycling, give them a warning. You know, say we're working on it. You know, next fall we're going to do it. Call this number or send us a note, because it seems like it's all or none in the communication. It's like, ta-da, it's happening next week. You know, it's like, oh, I'm going to be out of town next week. So, I mean, it could be very small, but just a little sustainability update. What are we up to? What's the city looking at? What's the Sustainability Commission struggling with? I think it would really help some of that grassroots interaction, I think. They give people the opportunity to say, what are you talking about? Or, I thought the city already did that, or, you know, that it's an invitation.
So
The
my
next magazine is all about sustainability, so you better check
Exactly.
it out. Really? Yeah. What?
So Mike's on the
So, Mel,
communication subcommittee. Yes.
is it in the works to have a sustainability page or web page or?
So I was waiting for the Sustainability Plan 2.0 to kind of be finished before we really dig into website updates, but Lucy and I are in constant contact of what that would look like, and also starting an Englewood Engage page around sustainability. So we're trying to do as much communication as possible.
Yes.
Great.
But yeah, we're just waiting for that plan.
Yeah, I
Or
think
we
it
were
would be,
waiting for that plan.
it's important to have a hub that people can go to, so that in the Englewood Citizen, there's the link, and people start to know.
Yes.
That's where you get resources on how to landscape sustainably. That's where you find out what programs are coming up. The one thing I experienced with Englewood Engaged, you can't have signups on it. It's not integrated with registering for events, which is too bad. And it only has the capacity to create one mailing list. Like, people can sign up to be notified, but not on specific topics.
I can definitely ask Lucy about that.
So a different, and it's also, well, it's gotten better. It's easier to find than it used to be. Anyway, so a different webpage maybe be more
Also,
functional.
Is there a general like contact email or something on the page as well?
For sustainability, I'm working on getting my contact on the sustainability one, but as of now, I mean, people usually go through like community development. I've noticed if they have sustainability questions and they forward it to me, but we're working on getting my contact up there.
Okay, yeah, because I just think about like, I know the best way for, you know, citizens to get their ideas are to show up to these meetings, but a lot of people don't, obviously. So if there's like a, you know, have an idea, contact us, like where they can just drop a note, and then we can bring kind of like a comment box. I mean, there's tons of people out there with great ideas, and, you know, we might talk about it in casual conversation, but if there's a way to actually get it in front of us easier, I think that would be helpful.
I like the idea of a comment box.
Yeah.
That's great. I have just a running, I'm keeping a running list, just of projects that there's no ranking to these, and I'll just rattle off a few. I know we previously talked about a GIS survey of Inglewood's blacktop, and I believe it was Kentucky bluegrass coverage. Still certainly interested in seeing that tool be used, the GIS tool. I would second Mel's public education efforts. I'm all about creating one-pagers, very aesthetically pleasing, tight, clear, concise one-pagers on how to compost, how to xeriscape, whatever. I think that can be an ongoing project for this commission. If we identify that we don't want to recreate the wheel. If the city's already done the work, great. But if we can really push public education efforts when it comes to sustainability, I'm all about it. I'd like to identify neighborhood groups. I don't know if that's a resource somewhere. What neighborhood groups exist? For example, I know Mike has one. I don't believe like the Duncan Park area where I'm at, I'm not aware of one. I'd like to be if that's the case. If we could identify different neighborhood groups, just to know.
That would be our neighborhood resources
Okay.
coordinator.
Who is that?
Madeline.
It's
Hinckley.
Madeline? Okay, so reach out to Madeline on that.
Us, for the Christmas thing, Logan.
That's right, that's Madeline. Okay,
Yeah.
love her. Okay, I'll reach out to Madeline on that front. Maybe I'll need to set up my own down in Duncan Park. Personal project. That's where I'm at right now. Are there any projects the group's hearing about? What are you hearing in your communities? I've heard from a couple of you. Just put it on the radar. Dana, you raised your hand.
I have a running list too. Shocker. So for education, I'd love for there to be a series, like a monthly talk on, I'm thinking the overall theme is sustainability solutions and solutions to different topics each month. And maybe in conjunction with the library.
Idea. They're meeting downstairs right now. In conjunction with the library.
Yeah, the webpage. And a book club maybe, or a sustainability book club with the library. And I talked about a pollinator corridor. I think that's a next year project. We don't have the lead time for this growing season, but I think that's very fundable through a grants program. City support, and if the turf replacement bill passes, perfect. There's more funding. I mean, there's more hands-on. I think there could be a kids program around pollinators and sustainability with helping kids connect with the ecology, our local ecology, and projects that they can do to be empowered to do something, building habitat or whatever it is.
I like that, Dana, that last piece.
So, on that, I know every year the city does like a tree sale, but I think in building on your ideas, Dan, I think it would be really cool, like this time of year, everybody starts going to the garden center and, you know, filling up their garden beds and everything. And I think it would be really cool if we could maybe put some sort of program together for suggested plants and find someone to partner with to maybe even do a plant sale, or I'm not sure where my mind is going.
Yeah. So one of my other ideas, I've pitched this to parks. They have a number of garden beds throughout the city parks that get planted every year with annuals that are inedible to pollinators. I would like to see those planted with ecologically useful plants that are pretty. And I think there's a real education opportunity there. If there are signs with the beds that have a QR code, people can link to the plant lists and information. They can link to the design, so they could do a piece of their yard with that garden bed design.
I love that idea.
The issue is they have to change their irrigation, so it's not happening this year. But it would save a lot of money.
In the long run, that seems like a no-brainer. Yeah.
No brainer.
Yeah.
Been trying.
Mike has hand raised.
I'll hurry up. Some of you may be aware of this. Cushing Park, Meg Donaldson and Andrea Zimmer, neighbors of mine. And we have been looking and meditating and complaining about a square of blacktop on the corner of Cherokee and that other.
Yeah, behind the Hobby Lobby.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a good example of our role. Lead follower, get out of the way. Meg has been researching and pushing, and I just admire the heck out of what she's doing. She's knocking on every door. She went to the Cultural Arts Committee. There's a grant she's applying for. And the three of us have said, that's just an ugly piece of blacktop. Something is better than that. So, for example, we're meeting tomorrow. Meg's going to update us on what she's doing, just what she knows and what she doesn't know. It just is interesting to me that we're not connected to that. We don't have to be connected to that, but it's back to a neighborhood group trying to do something in the direction of sustainability. They apparently don't see us as a resource, which is okay. And I'll just be a neighborhood person and chip in and help them any way I can. It's just an awareness thing. We're still trying to get something done on that corner. I don't know if we'll succeed, but that's what we're trying to do.
Sorry. There was a grant program that the city was touting everywhere. If you guys don't follow Englewood on Instagram, I highly recommend you do.
Yeah.
But they were having, I don't know what it was, neighborhood grants or something, beautification.
Up to 5,000.
Yeah. So I don't know if you thought about that, but sounds like it might be a good candidate for some blacktop.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that grant that's 5,000, and if you do it real quick, by this Friday is the deadline for the Arapahoe County Open Space Grants. And
there you go. Yeah.
That's what I want this commission
Yeah, we should be involved
so
in some
that's
way.
where I see, like, for next year,
Yeah.
that when I say it's very fundable.
Yeah.
They have grants in the lower category up to 300,000 that would be perfect for pollinator pathway through the city, and communities could apply for them, for projects like that.
We did discover, I'll spare you the detail. There's a strange ownership formula on that lot. The city owns half of it, and private investors own half of it, and there's a separate foundation or something. I don't get it, but that is an issue that is an obstacle to doing something. We even went forward, Meg went forward and talked to, I think, that foundation group and said, we'll do something temporary. So if somebody's going to put an apartment building here in 5 years, we'll do something for 5 years. We're very frustrated because we just can't get off the mark. So it's sustainability, it's beautification, it's hopefully eliminating some blacktop. I don't know if it's going to get off the ground or not, but be aware, there's energy out there trying to do something. And again, back to our role as a commission, how should it work? How should we be a resource for them, or
for example,
block for them, or argue with them, or whatever?
I would love that to be, a topic on a future meeting. Let's have Meg come talk to us about the project, because I envision, Dana, thank you for being armed with that information. I want to be a resource for neighborhood groups, for neighborhood projects, for citizens of Englewood in general. I want them to come to us and we can point them toward grants, or we can even have a hand in.
That's a city.
Sure, it's just an
City
example.
grant.
Yeah. Have a hand in helping them apply for grants. I see us filling that role as a commission.
And I think providing the educational how-to for
Absolutely.
projects like that.
We're butting up against 8 o'clock. We have a few more items. I would look to Mel, maybe you can help us. Can we get through, there's sustainability updates? Have we?
Yeah, I can do that super fast.
Great.
So the sustainability plan update went to city council last week, 2 weeks ago?
The 4th, so last week.
Last week. And the strategic plan as a whole went, and the recommendations were approved. The only one that got removed was the divesting from fossil fuels one, but everything else I believe was kept.
Yeah, so the one thing, the one change we made this to the entire plan, but it affected the sustainability plan, portion of the strategic plan the most, was that anything that had language like consider or resource or research or look into or pursue, anything that wasn't an actual project we took out of the official projects list and put it into potential future projects, so it's still retained within the plan. But the idea there is we don't want to load our plan up with stuff we're not going to do. We want to be able to actually measure stuff we want to do. So that probably eliminated 20%, I would guess, of the line items in the sustainability plan from the official projects list. But I think that's helpful because then we're focusing on what we can, what is actually doable, and then obviously this commission is going to resource all sorts of things, and if something bubbles to the surface, like one of the ones that was in there was research a composting program or something like that, and so that's going to be retained in there. But that's one that I think this commission could really see if we come up with a way to actually move that forward as implement a composting program of some kind and add that to the strategic plan, this year, next year, something like that. But I think that allows us to kind of focus our efforts in on the things we put in there as actually accomplishable things.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I believe the final polished version of that plan will be available in July. I think, I'm pretty sure. And
Can we, please, thought? Do you have a thought?
I like that idea of being more action oriented and taking out the just study, but sometimes it things that seems like you can't jump straight to doing something without making a plan for how to get there. So like an action item of develop a plan does seem like an action rather than a passive thing.
So I think it was more of the investigate kind of stuff, the more in between things, the more action item ones, that actually to do ones are still there. And all the investigate ones are still there. They're just in a different kind of bubble, but they're still there.
I wonder if it would be a good idea for us, either mid-year or at that full circle here on the agenda, this end of year review, we could take a look at that list and see if there are areas where we can change some of that language to make some of those items that have become a tier 2. If we can change some of the language to make it an action item for the following year.
Yeah, and also, or even before then if necessary, but go through those ones. And this was one of the concerns I think council had with the sustainability plan, is add a lot more than most of our other sections of the plan. And so we're trying to focus in on the things we can do. But I think that's where we can go through and say, let's prioritize this list. We really, do we have time? Are some of these easy things that we can, check off and be done with? Are some of them things we want to move up in the priority list? And someone will say, that's a good one, but, we'll move it down the priority list for now. So that may be a great place to apply that priority ranking approach.
I like the idea.
And then, so for the greenhouse gas community inventory, that is in the work and is getting chugged along really, really well. And that will be done by the end of the summer. It'll be public, everyone can see it. For Soul Smart, I already did the consultation meeting with them. And for a reminder, this is an absolutely free program through the Department of Energy. And basically they have, they come in, they look at your codes, make sure that it's super solar PV friendly. And this is really great for businesses, residents that really want to have solar in their community. And Englewood is one of the last followers of this, but hopefully not for long. When we get our program manager for Code Next, they're going to start at the end of April. I'm looping back with them in May to kind of get their opinion and get their blessing on the program to investigate moving forward. And then also, so we have internal education and outreach going along internally with city staffers for recycling. We have an event on May 4th about a lunch and learn for city staffers around recycling and why it's important. And then also we're looking into applying to do an EV action plan for the city. This is also free through the Partners in Energy program. We went through them in 2017 for our energy action plan, which we do have one. It's just a little dated. And so if we get it, hopefully, that would be something that we could start kind of in late summer if we get approved.
Christine?
Coincidentally, I just sat in on Boulder County's EV action planning through Excel this morning. And what I thought was amazing that we should probably try to do here is that it was a large group of neighboring communities. There's maybe a half dozen of them. And it seems like that would be so much more impactful to try to go in together and plan together, because a regional approach could be so much stronger.
So it was Boulder County that did it?
Yeah, so Lafayette, Louisville, Superior, Longmont, Boulder itself, Nederland, they were all on the call. They were saying, how can we, that they were prioritizing what was most important and trying to make their codes and policies more consistent.
Yeah, I can definitely reach out to a contact at Arapahoe County to see if there would be any interest there. And then wrapping up, so the Colorado Department of Public Health and Energy just launched a Colorado Green Business Network. This is also free. Unfortunately for 2022, all of their kind of pilot communities, they're filled up, but I'm in communication with their lead person about what 2023 might look like for Englewood. So that's on the docket. And then our final one is just that Earth Day proclamation was approved by City Council last week. So that is recognized.
Thanks, Mel.
Yeah.
It's Earth Month. I'll keep this quick. Mel emailed me looking for ideas, and she asked me if I want to take a personal photo or something about Earth Month. I'm not photogenic, so I'm not gonna do that. But the idea was pitched. How do we spread awareness for this commission? Could we have a group photo or something? I don't know how we can do that with this online hybrid situation, but just wanted to put that idea out there. Any thoughts, any interest in that, or should that be something we save for a future communication for the commission?
I like the idea of like not getting the community involved, but I don't know if there's a way to like have citizens submit stuff, you know, about ways that they're personally doing stuff sustainable. So if somebody's got like a beautiful, you know, drought resistant garden or something like that,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe giving them a platform to be like, you know, here's what sustainability is to me or something.
Yes, so we currently have that going right now for citizen submissions, and I think they're going to be posted the week of Earth Week, the week of the 21st.
Cool.
Okay, so I know we're wrapping up.
Yep.
So one of the things on my, on the survey was, that I put in was a native low water garden tour or awards in Englewood. And I forgot to mention, and I hope I'm not doing something unethical, it's something I'm talking about doing with parks, is BioBlitz Day on April 11th, where the Butterfly Pavilion will come and lead a citizen science data collection day at Depot Park.
Is that May 11th?
April 11th, I'm sorry,
Yesterday.
June 11th, yes.
June 11th, okay.
I know.
I do love the idea, you know,
And then every year we could track how the landscape impacts pollinators.
and I'll quit talking. I work in public affairs, obviously. Rachel loves doing she brought up the Christmas light judging earlier. And so whenever you brought up the native garden tours, I love the idea. We can have a sort of award and tour and go to the neighborhood. I just thought that was a great idea. So I wanted to put that to the record. Okay. We're past 8 o'clock. I think we can wrap up. Mel and I, let's hang around. We can find a time to meet, the two of you and I, and then we can sort of hash out what we want the May agenda to look like. And we'll get that out to you guys. Is that sort of proper protocol? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I can craft up the agenda. You can approve that, add anything.
How do we, gosh, I know it's already 8:09. If we wanted to have a speaker, our top was natural environment. Any ideas of who we could look to, or any ideas that come into mind of who we might want to come talk to us about sustainability efforts?
For the natural.
For the natural environment.
Yeah. Can you narrow that down a little?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going off of the survey results here.
I think if one of our
Do we want to hear from the city?
projects is tree planting, then maybe hear about the tree sale, how that goes, how they plan it, how we can target the areas that have lower tree scores. and then hear from someone in the city about how they do their planning for where they put new trees.
We do have a new assistant urban forester too, Evan. That's an option.
Yeah.
That'd be
That'd
great.
be great
Yeah.
to meet with.
Dave Lee,
Dave,
the,
I've heard of Dave.
the arborist, I forget what he's in charge of, but I know
Dave Lee.
he's spoken to some of the other councils.
That's
as
good
well.
to know too. And Evan,
Evan Anderson.
let's start there. Evan Anderson and or Dave Lee.
Dana, who do you think would be best at the city to talk about city efforts?
And Dave, it's all under Dave Lee, so Dave for the park supervisors, Tim and Adrian. I think somebody who could talk about water savings in landscape use.
I would love to
The-
attend that discussion.
Yeah, I mean, the water, like the water specialist in Aurora, forgetting his name. Anyway, he could talk about what they've done in Aurora.
Mhm.
I don't know.
I know I've read a few articles about what they're doing
Yeah,
over there. Okay.
I like that
we have some
idea
ideas.
because it seems like a good idea to not just get a speaker to educate us,
yeah.
but to inform us for actions we can take or policies we could propose, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think, yeah, they're doing a lot there with water conservation and landscaping, and it's been popular.
Good. We've got 4 or 5 names then. Let's work together on that.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
Motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Second.
Motion, here a second. Any objection? No. We're adjourned. Thank you, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Good meeting.
I did, okay, okay.
We look at our
And-
calendars right now?
Sure, sure.
Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Marissa. Thanks, Rachel.
Thank
I
you.
wondered, I was like, is that, I feel
No,
sort of